Hey there, FLOSSTUBE. This is Cathy, the hands-on designer. I am here today with my second specialty stitch tutorial. Boy, that's a mouthful. Specialty stitch tutorial for the Four Seasons Folk series. This one is for summer folk. Now this is where I'd probably be holding the paddle, the actual model, and I'd be holding it up to the camera so you can all go ooh and ah. And well, as I've mentioned before, my models are working models, and the summer folk model actually happens to be out on a trunk show. It's probably actually on its way back to me right now, but I didn't want to delay the video anymore, so I thought, well, we're going to go ahead and make do with the front cover. And since if you've got the chart, obviously if you're watching this video, then we'll follow along with the chart anyway. So you already know what it looks like. Anyway, so thanks for that. So let's get talking about the specialty stitches just a little bit. Previous video, again, talked about the 3 specialty stitches that were in Spring Folk, and I showed you a version on Aida, and I showed you a version on linen. And I also talked about the starting your stitch with the waist knot or the away waist knot. We'll be doing that again in this video. And for all the seasons, as I've said in the beginning, where I'm used the same number 12 pearl cotton. It's color number 642. One ball is plenty for all 4 charts. In fact, get together with a couple of your friends and you probably can share this, and it shouldn't be a problem. If you change the fabric color and you want to change this color, absolutely. I will tell you, I saw a beautiful one where I was gone teaching last weekend where she changed the fabric that she stitched on to a beautiful sagey green, almost gray linen. It was gorgeous, but yet she kept the same color of pearl cotton, and let me tell you, the contrast was amazing. So really like that. All right, so we have actually 4 specialty stitches in this particular chart. I snuck an extra one in there. We have the Smyrna cross, which if you even remotely know me, then you know the Smyrna cross is my favorite stitch, besides cross stitch, of course. Why is it my favorite stitch? I don't know. I really, really like it. I love the texture. I love that, you know, you can fill a little bit more area with it. I don't know. I just really like it. It's very versatile. We also have a nested lazy daisy stitch or a chain stitch. We have a layered cross, and I put Cathy's version in this because I've seen there are a lot of stitches out there that might be called by certain names, and everybody maybe kind of does their own little take on it, and it's modified, or you have to, I don't know, just do some modification. And so I thought, I'm going to call this, okay, Taylor has her version, Cathy has her version. So anyway, so layered cross, and then the 4th is an eyelet. All very pretty stitches. We actually have to make no compensation for going to Aida this time, as we did with the first. So I will demonstrate first on some white Aida using the number 12 pearl cotton. I'll walk you through the stitches, and then just like last time, the chart of course has the information on the back. There's 2 pages of the chart itself, and on the back of that informational page is the 4 specialty stitches. Now I want to point out this is where we come down to charting and formatting. So the nested lazy daisy is actually charted on here horizontally. When you stitch it, it's a vertical chain stitch on the chart. So you just go like that. It just was hard to fit all the charting in here and not have to go on to another page. So that's where we talk about chart real estate. Got to make the most of it. Anyway, all right, let's get going. Okay, and I am back. All right, we'll start with our a piece of, I believe this is 32 count antique white linen, just for demonstrating. And we're going to do that first row of Smyrna crosses. Now, if you look at this part of the chart, you'll see that I've got it charted for linen, and I also have it charted for Aida. We're going to start with the linen, of course. We're going to come up at 1 and count over 4 threads and up 4 threads, or on the diagonal 4 threads, and go down at 2. Then we'll go find the number 3, come up there, and down at 4. I'll come up here, split the difference here of the large X and come up at 5 and go down at 6. And then we're going to come up here, do our final, our final stitch will be 7 to 8. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, I am stitching my Smyrna crosses from left to right. Or I don't know if I mentioned that in the beginning, but I actually did. I started on the left-hand side of the Smyrnas and I stitched in this direction. You could totally stitch from right to left. You could start in the middle and go either direction. You could really do whatever works best for you, but this is how I stitched it. That way I would just have one long continuous thread and I didn't have to stop and start. That's how why I charted the 7-8 stitch going this way. Now, if you decide that you're going to go right to left with it, I would reverse the order of the 7 to 8. Why, you might ask? Because what I want to do is, since I'm going left to right, the thread's going to go down on 8. Then I'm going to travel to the next stitch and come up at 1 again. That way, when you go into that hole and your needle comes over this way, the thread will pull back to open that hole a little bit, just as you will find it did all the way around. So then it just kind of has a uniform look all the way around. So if you're going to start on the right hand side and stitch to the left, I'm just going to say reverse the order of that last stitch. And one thing about Smyrna crosses, you know, of course we always talk about stitching rules and that kind of thing, and I'm big on saying, hey, there are no stitching rules. One thing I really like to do is, I do like to see Smyrna crosses all crossed the same way, whether it's left 7-8 or 8-7, whichever direction. I just like that horizontal stitch. If there's a field of Smyrna crosses, I like them to all be crossed in the same direction. However, that being said, you do have a lot of options, and I have actually designed patterns where I do a Smyrna cross where I maybe do a field of them and I actually alternate the way it ends. And that way, that would be purposeful. And what I like is that when the eye goes across the texture of the stitches, you know, it just kind of smooths across that horizontal line. But sometimes you want that added texture. Or you might do your base Smyrna cross in one color floss, and you might do the top, the upright cross in a completely different, just to give it a real layered look. So many options with the Smyrna cross, and maybe that's why I really like this stitch. It's very, very versatile. All right, so let's go ahead and demonstrate. All right, we'll move this off to the side. And I am stitching without my glasses on so I can actually see clearly, and we're gonna try this. We'll wing it. All right, so we talked about the waist knot and the away waist knot in my first video, and I'm going to take my needle and thread down through the linen, and of course I've got a knot on top, and I'm doing a waist knot because I'm going to bring my needle up over here. And yes, of course I like to start on the vertical thread. That's another whole discussion, but since I'm trying to see this from a distance, I'm not necessarily going to be on the vertical thread. Most times I usually guess right, but so I'm bringing my needle and thread up this way. And remember, that's what it's going to look like on the back. So as I work my Smyrna crosses, I will cover this and secure or anchor my thread. All right, so that's where I am. Okay, so let's see if I can do this. Now we're going to count, make the camera stop moving. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I promise my hands will get steadier. Okay. I'm watching my stitching through the camera. Okay, there's my first leg of my Smyrna cross. So now I'm going to come out down in this 1, 2, 3, 4 in the lower right of the large cross stitch. And by this time you can kind of see the outer boundary. So you see I didn't really have to count for that, but I could have counted over 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where I would have gone down. But like I said, once you kind of get this part of the stitch, the foundation of the cross, which would be the cross stitch over 4 threads, you kind of start to see the 4 corners. All right, let's take our thread all the way through, and we're going to finish her off. Okay, so I like to come down here. And again, it's easy. Once you have that foundation, that cross stitch over 4, I'm kind of splitting the difference on the bottom side. Sorry, I keep bumping the camera. And we're going to have a straight stitch, go up to the top, and you might hear a kitty in the background too. All right, so there's our 5 to 6 stitch, and then I'm going to come up at 7, and she wants to join us and take a stitch. We're going to come up at 7, and we'll go down at 8. Okay. Whisker, am I doing this right? That's the kitty cat that's joining us right now. Okay, so there is your Smyrna cross over 4 threads. So you can see I've done that last stitch horizontally. So now I am ready to go over to my next one. Now I know in the pattern it kind of, I alter them or I vary them, kind of one up, one down, just to give it a little movement. I'm not necessarily going to do that now. I want to just do another Smyrna cross. So here you can see I'm coming up at the lower left-hand corner, ready to go. And let's look on the back. See, yep, all right. I'm already kind of covering up that waist knot on the back, so that'll be nice and secure. And I'll demonstrate one more. The cat really is sitting here watching. That's too funny. Okay, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, take our first stitch. Then we come down to the lower 1, 2, 3, 4, the lower right corner. And then up to the top left. And we've got that base cross stitch over 4 threads. Sometimes I've been known to just do a cross stitch over 4 threads. I just really like the texture that these stitches give you. Let's come up where it's charted for number 5. We kind of split that difference there. Oh, excuse me. And split the difference at the top. When I say split the difference, I'm like basically you're in the center hole, or count 2. And then we're going to come up on spot number 7. And we'll go down at 8. All right. And if I was going to do another one, I would just get ready to, I'm not following the pattern as far as placement of the next one. I'm just showing you where I might start a next one if I was going from left to right, as I explained that I'd like to do. All right, so there you go. That is your Smyrna cross over 4. I'm going to go ahead and just cut this off so that I can start the next. And put my thread over there. I was smart again. I learned from last time and threaded some needles right away. Now this next one, I'm actually going to move on first to the layered cross. So I will come back to the nested lazy daisy or the chain stitch. So with this one, we're going to do, it covers a larger area than the Smyrna cross. So you'll see we're coming up at 1 and we're laying that first diagonal stitch up at 3, down at 4. So once again, we are doing a base of a large X. However, this time when we come up at 1, we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could also do 6 on the diagonal. All right, so we'll go down at 2, come up at 3, go down at 4. And then we're going to lay in some layered stitches. So we'll go to 5 to 6 next, then 7 to 8. It's almost at this point kind of like a modified cross, but then because it's slightly larger, we have some more room to play with. So then we'll come up at 9, down at 10, at 11, down at 12. Same thing again with any kind of specialty stitch like this. I like to see the order, the stitch order the same. So if you're looking at a field of layered crosses on your stitching, the last stitch will always be at the same angle. We won't have a bunch like this and then maybe one like that, because that'll kind of interrupt the pattern. All right, so let's do this once again. And with this one, I love this. I actually kind of made a field of the layered crosses. I love the texture for this one. Can you tell I really like specialty stitches? Okay, so let's do another waist knot. I'm going to come up, let's make sure I'm coming up over here. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down. Okay, there's our first leg of the layered cross. Now sometimes you got to poke around with your needle. That's why we use a tapestry needle, because it's got that nice blunt tip. So now let's count down to the lower right. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And like I said, it's kind of easy at this point to sort of find that opposite corner. We just make sure that we're in line with the top right and also the bottom left. And you could also just do the counting, 6 over, 6 up, just like I had. So there is the base of your layered cross. Very similar to the Smyrna cross. It's just a little bit bigger. So now we're going to layer more stitches. So we're here at 4. We're going to come up at 5, down at 6. And you'll see for linen, these are 2 threads away. So I'll use this top right anchor and count down 1, 2 threads and come up at 5 and go over here at 6, which is 1, 2 threads away from the bottom. All right, so we'll do that. Okay, so there's my top corner, 1, 2. My bottom corner will go up 1, 2. That's 5, 6. And now we're going to come over here. We're sort of going in every other thread here. 7. And then coming up down at 8. So now we've completed the first, and that by itself is even kind of a pretty little stitch. It sort of reminds me of, I think it was the partial roads that we did in the first. But let's go ahead and finish layering that cross. So now we're going to come up here at 9, right, which is 2 threads away from the top right. And we're going to come down here 1, 2 threads away from the bottom left. And 1 final stitch. And we're going to come up here. By this time, that final stitch is sort of easy to find. And sometimes, like I said, you got to use the head of the needle just to sort of find your hole, especially if you're stitching like I am through a camera. All right. And there is your final stitch. And it's so pretty. It just gives, again, just some nice texture, and it's a fun stitch. All right, should we do another one? All right, we'll come over here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. If you get the base in, it really just kind of follows from there. The other stitches just sort of follow from there because this base cross really kind of sets the boundaries for the square. So we're going to count down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These really are that easy. I just love these composite type stitches. And again, we just can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's our top corner. All right, then we're going to come and we'll do the horizontal stitches first. So we're going to count down 1, 2, and this is on the diagonal, so we'll come up 1, 2 from the bottom left, and then 1, 2, up from the bottom right, and down 2 from the top left. All right, so there's our base, our horizontal stitches, excuse me, and we're going to complete 9. And then the final vertical stitch. Now, could you end them with the horizontal stitches? Absolutely. What you would just do is reverse the order that you work them in. I just chose to make them all finish this way. They have kind of a look of a road stitch to them, but just a little different. But again, I really like the way they look. You could do them with multiple colors. You could layer them like that. Very pretty. All right. I'm going to bring my needle up to the front so I can cut it. And we're going to go on to the eyelet. Let me trim this so I'm not dragging all kinds of threads. Grab another prepared needle. That is the one thing I definitely learned how to do in these videos, is just have your needles ready. Okay, so I know we got this fold in the linen, so I hopefully that's not going to affect too much, but I want to save room for I got a little generous with my space here. I need to save room for that chain stitch. Okay, so away waist knot, or waist knot, I guess, in this case. So an eyelet is, okay, that's this section down here. And you can kind of see I've got 2 rows of eyelets, and kind of alternating, and you can sort of see an eyelet is what I consider a pulled thread stitch. So as you stitch, all the stitches surrounding the eyelet are all going to go down into the center, so that with each time you pull the needle and thread through, you kind of open up that hole. And the goal for pretty eyelets is to have the holes all about the same openness, I guess, is for lack of a better way to put it. If you don't really like that open hole look, you can just be gentle with your stitches and don't pull. You could pull even harder with this. I'm really creating quite a lacy effect. So there we go. And again, here's the chart. We're going to come up at 1. And everything is going, and we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4 threads straight to the left and go down into that center hole. And then we're going to work our way around the outside edge of the eyelet. There will be, in some cases, if you're working an eyelet in other charts, where you'll work them, say, the 4 posts and then the 4 diagonal last. A lot of times that has more to do with the path you're taking from eyelet to eyelet. So what I did, again, I'm starting on the left-hand side. So we're going to go up at 1 and all down into the center. So these will all be up at the odd numbers. So then we count on the diagonal 2 threads down into the same hole. Diagonal up 2 threads down into the hole. We're working our way around the outer edge of the eyelet. And I want the last stitch to go into the middle at 16, so that when we travel to the next stitch, that again, as I talked about, that thread pulls back and opens up the hole that you're creating. We don't want to actually see the thread kind of, you know, dangling in there and filling that hole. All right. I like, if you're going to have the holes, I like them to be nice and even. All right. So let's get started with that one. All right. Where did my, I'm going to come up here and get a hold of my needle. I'm going to count to the left 4 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down on 4. Okay, then I'm going to come up at 3, which is on the diagonal. 1, 2. You can see I'm kind of pulling on it a little bit. I'm sort of opening that hole up a little bit, and we don't even have to count here because we're going down into that same hole. And I'm going to give it a little gentle tug, and then we're going to go up 2 more on the diagonal. So I use my needle to find my spot. 1, 2. And down into the same hole. All right, give it a nice little tug back. Now we're going to start working down on the diagonal. 1, 2. Give it a little tug. Down into the middle. So you can see at some point, whether you do light tension, you are opening a hole there. You can't go into that hole this many times and have and not have an opening. Okay, so we're going to go. Now you have an option here. You can count down on the diagonal 2, or you can count 4 threads to the left of the hole. Sorry, I don't mean to keep moving the camera. Down straight into the hole. You know, with each video, I do try something a little bit more, and hopefully it gets better and better. I always say, I'm a cross-stitch designer. I'm not a videographer. All right, so that's our stitch number coming up at 11. Down into the center hole. And what a pretty little, some people might call this a star stitch, although that's actually something different, but it looks like it. But it's just a little eyelet. Did you ever have like a little girls, you might have had like an eyelet blouse? It's always got those kind of well embroidered holes, creating like sometimes along the sleeves, or always so pretty. And it always has these holes, which is, I guess, why this is called an eyelet. All right, the final stitch. Up and over 2 and down into the middle. And I'm going to pull. So this is when I can demonstrate sort of what I mean by why I wanted you to end up on this stitch number 15 going down into the middle, because my next stitch is going to be over here. And again, I'm working left to right, so I would come up over here somewhere. So you can see I'm pulling the you can look at the hole in the, you can see I'm sort of pulling on that thread. If I were to be stitching from right to left and I carried my thread across, what would happen is the thread would go like that. All right. And that doesn't really give you a pretty opening for your eyelet. So that's why I like to work in this order if I'm working left to right. And then actually, if you wanted to work right to left, you would just reverse the order of the stitches and end on this side. Okay? That's a very good visual of why I'm telling you about this stitch order. Sometimes I'm going to try this. I'm going to demonstrate this. It could be really pretty. I love eyelet stitches that are attached. So here, I'm going to come out down here purposely. And how I got there was I actually counted down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the reason why I'm going to do that is because this side is going to share holes, which I think is a really cool look. I'm counting up 4 to find my center. And I started in the wrong spot. Oh, well, that was a good idea, but I'm going to go back and take it out because I want you to see where I should have started. We could have made this work, but for purposes of this video, I want you to see where I started. So I'm not going to do that. Sorry. I'm going to come over here. And we're going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll explain to you here in a moment why I changed my mind on what I did. Sorry. And I'm not going to be able to edit that out, so I'm going to do that more of as an explanation. I really do need to learn how to edit. And I said I'm a cross-stitch designer. I'm not a videographer. Really, you're just going to be counting your threads. And as you get comfortable, if you're new to linen, you start seeing the blocks, not the individual threads. If you're experienced on linen, then you don't need this. Well, maybe you do. Go back down in the middle. I know I'm not counting as much with this, but I think you can see what I'm doing with the stitch, and you can follow the numbers on the chart. And yes, I did start one thread down from so my placement wouldn't be perfect, but I'm demonstrating the stitch, so can't all be perfect. Okay, Kitty's back. All right, just 2 more legs on my eyelet, and there we go. That's the final one. Now, if you say do a field of eyelets and you're like, oh, one of those, see, those are opened up about the same amount. You can always kind of go back in with a needle and kind of open that hole up a little bit if you've got one that's maybe a little too small, something like that. Now, what I was trying to demonstrate before is eyelets were used in a lot of old samplers, and because we don't want that weird funky stitch underneath, sometimes you have to switch the order of stitching based on the direction that the next stitch is going to start. But I also, and that's kind of more complicated for another video, but sometimes it's fun to see these the eyelets nest or share holes. Now in this one, I did not do that, but you can see that they're awfully close. I left a little bit of gap in there. But a whole field of eyelets where they're sharing holes, I think is really kind of cool looking. Yeah, I'm a geek. I'm a specialty stitch geek. Okay, all right. So here's the one. I've seen a few of you stitching, and everybody's kind of talking about the nested lazy daisy. So I'm hoping I can demonstrate this one well for you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end that thread, and hopefully this is helping. Again, apologize for the wobbly camera. I just thought I would try this angle. I thought it would be better. I could get a little closer to the camera. So, all right. Again, as I said in the chart, I'm going to show briefly where that is. And I don't want to show the whole chart, but it's holding these the B-skeps up in the piece. I'll show you that. they're right there. I just thought it would be kind of fun. It was a fun way to add a different stitch. Originally, I just did a straight back stitch there. So if you're like, Cathy, no way, not doing the nested lazy daisy, then just do a back stitch, or even just do a little bit of a cross stitch, just to kind of show that they're hanging from that top fence. You know, that white row up there. They got to be hanging somehow. They can't be floating, right? So anyway, so here we go. So actually, what we're going to do is you're going to come up at one. You're not going to notice we're sharing a lot of holes here. So you'll come up at one and down at two, but we leave a loop. And a lot of times when we do a lazy daisy, we actually then come up at three, come up in this hole right here, and then go down into four. And it sort of creates like a line there. Sometimes that's good for like petals or leaves or something like that. But in this case, we're actually going to come up and then down again in the same hole to hold this chain in place, create another chain, and create another chain. And you'll have to follow the chart for however many chains that are made. Now, some of the chains are slightly uneven. I apologize about that. So you can kind of, you know, it's in the garden, so they don't necessarily all have to be even. You'll see that this one is actually a little bit longer than these two. So let's demonstrate. Okay, whew, I'm a little nervous about this one myself. So I'm going to anchor over here. I'm going to turn. So we're going to come up here, come up in a hole, and we're going to go back down into the very same hole. Okay? We don't want to pull all the way through, or else we will come out. Now, in the beginning, if you would like to leave a nice large loop, that's fine. Ultimately, you're going to have to snug that down a little bit. The other thing too is we want to make sure that our stitches, our threads are laying side by side. So kind of play with it. Yeah, see, I think it looks a little bit better. So we don't want it to kind of loop on us. All right. I think that's good. You can actually also kind of go in with your needle. Oh, why did we go out of focus? And separate those threads a little bit so that they lay side by side. You can even kind of pull them a little bit, you know, kind of like that. Make sure they're nice and side by side. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go, let's see, one, two, three. I'm going to go 3 holes. I'm going to just do 4 for demonstration purposes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have another cat. Oh my goodness, I think it's getting close to dinner time. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm bringing this one up, but I'm going to pull on this a little bit so that I don't, so I'm creating that first chain. All right. But I'm going to pull it off the side just a little bit, make sure I'm correct. All right, but what I did now is I'm going to go down into the same hole that I just came up. So we are now on stitch 4. So we came up at 3, go down into the same hole at 4. Now, if I let go of this and I pulled it all the way through, yep, we'd not only lose our first stitch, we would lose our second stitch. Well, we would not only lose our second stitch, but we would definitely. Now, I pulled on this kind of tight. Okay, I'm taking it off camera here briefly because I need to see what I did because I accidentally, see? Okay, so that's what's going to happen. I'm going to redo this. Hold on one second. I'm going to redo this because I pulled it tight, and I'm probably also going to go get rid of a cat. Hold on one second. Okay, and I am back. Sorry about that. What I had done, just to explain, is I had actually caught my thread on my work surface, and it made my first chain of my chain stitch too tight. So I just, as I said, showed you, I just went boop boop, pulled it out, and we're going to start again. And that, I think, is kind of the beauty of this stitch. And I'm not going to lie, it's also a little bit of the aggravation, but man, it looks really cool. So I brought my thread up, and I'm going to go down into the same hole. And I'm really trying not to hit that to move it. Okay, so make sure that's laying nice and side by side. If you want to bring it in a little bit, just to see which way it lays nicely. Okay, there we go. Like my little loop there. I'm going to count down 4 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I might have it a little different in the chart, but I'm just doing this so you can really see. So now this is going to anchor the first chain of the stitch. I'm going to pull on it a little bit. There we go. I could probably go with a slightly shorter thread. So I like to leave that little teardrop look. I like to leave it fairly loose because it's easy to make these tighter. It's not as easy to loosen them up. So I'm going to go right back down into the same hole that my thread just came out of. And you can kind of see I'm holding it in place, holding it so I don't pull it too tight. And we're going to do another countdown 4. It does get kind of tight. Here's the other thing. Since these were kind of meant to be chain stitches, chains hanging up the B-steps, I kind of made sure I sort of divided the space. So they may actually not be each 4 threads apart or 3 threads apart, that kind of thing. So kind of just use your judgment. So I counted down, so they're about the same length. And I want to open this one up a little bit. I like nice fat chains. I don't know, I just do. And we're going to go down into the same hole. Make another loop. And it's probably easier to count once you're at this point. So if you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And pull again. I'm going to do it one more, even though I think most of the chains are 3. I'm going to go chains long, the chains holding the B-steps up. I'm going to do it one more time just because I feel like even with me doing it on camera, I mean, I can do the stitch easily. It's just trying to do it on camera that always makes it a little interesting. Got 1. 2, 3, 4. It's funny, when I did the first one I found, I just sort of tuck my way through the stitches. And I'm going to pull on this one, and I'm going to make this my last one. So then, all right, isn't that kind of fun? I just think it gives a little bit of, again, the texture. And if you're like, well, this one's maybe a little too wide, I can actually kind of pull on that a little bit from the back and anchor that. So now I'm not going to go down in the same hole. I'm actually going to go over this last loop because we got to anchor that and pull down on it. And again, we don't want to pull too tight because we don't want to pull that one, make the loop tighter. But now look at that. Isn't that kind of fun? It's a little bit of a challenge because you feel like you need an extra 3rd or 4th hand, but I really think it's a lot of fun. And so here we go. We've got your Smyrna cross. We've got your layered cross stitch, Cathy's version, and we've got an eyelet, and then we also have that nested lazy daisy. Next, I'm going to walk you through each of them on Aida. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back again for the Aida version of the same 4 stitches. So we're going to start again with the Smyrna cross. We're going to do the same stitch order. We're not doing any kind of compensation for coverage or anything like that with any of the stitches. So that makes that nice and fun. we will follow in the same manner, the Smyrna cross, then I'll do the layered cross, the eyelet, and then we'll come back up to the nested lazy daisy. I had to get the cats out of here. I think Mr. HOD is off feeding them dinner. And then I also needed to take a deep breath, which at this point, I want to remind you, a lot of times when I'm teaching a class, I was actually just gone recently teaching classes, and if I see that students are really kind of, tensing up, I tell everybody, okay, needles down, scissors down, everything down, and then I lead them all in a deep breath. And honestly, this whole setup, I kind of had to go take a deep breath myself. So here we go. All right, ready? I'm going to stand up again. It was easier to do the, I'm going to bring the camera up just a little bit. Here we go. It was easier to do the chain stitches. I was sitting down. Told you I needed that deep breath. All right, here we go. Waist knot. Smyrna cross. We're going to come up over here. Again, I like the same thing. I like to work left to right. So, my Smyrna cross is from left to right. That is really just my preference. Why? I don't know. Lefties will probably find it easier to go the opposite direction. So we're going to come out at 1 in the bottom left corner and count over 2 blocks, up 2 blocks, and go down at the top right. Then we're going to count down 2 blocks to the lower right corner. And now you can kind of see where that upper left corner is supposed to be. So here you have your foundation X, and then we're going to come up on the bottom. All the same rules about stitch order, that kind of thing, all the same thing for Ada. All right, and like I said, we're not going to have to do any changes or adaptations to the stitch for Ada. So even if you're not stitching on linen, I suggest you watch the linen portion, mostly just to laugh at my weird comments, but also to get an idea of why we do what we do, about why I ended the last stitch going from 7 to 8 and not 8 to 7, and how I really like all the final stitches to be that horizontal stitch if you had a field of Smyrna crosses, and the different options you have for coloring it, texture, that kind of thing. So there is your Smyrna cross on Ada. Let's do another one. All right, so we're coming up at the lower left. Cathy, don't bump the camera. Okay, we're going to come up. Same thing, you'll notice me sometimes using the tip of my needle to poke through the holes to find where I need to come up next. It's partly because I'm stitching in the manner that I am through a camera lens, but sometimes that does help. All right, there's our big X. Now we are ready to put our upright cross to finish out the stitch. They really are just a lot of fun to do. I love the texture. I think maybe that's it. Okay, there you go. That is your Smyrna cross. Now, look, they're the same exact size, and they really do have the same look to them. There's your Smyrna cross on linen and your Smyrna cross on Ada. Okay, I'm going to end this one, and we'll get needled up for the layered cross. I feel like I should do a little, what is that, Bob Ross? Just gonna put a fun little Smyrna cross over here. Just a happy little Smyrna cross. Okay, I got a few weird comments on the Ada section too. Okay, so anchoring the pearl cotton. Again, reminder, this is pearl cotton number 12, color number 642 for the series. And we're using just one strand of it. Pearl cotton comes in 3 different weights, 5, 8, and 12. Actually, no, sorry, 4 different weights, 3, 5, 8, and 12. The higher the number, the thinner the thread. So for something like this, decorative stitches, I really do like to use the number 12 because you can use one ply, and it comes, you know, in the 642 in the pearl cotton is the same as 642 in floss. So, okay, so remember, for the layered cross, we're going to go over, on linen, we went over 6 threads and up 6 threads. Actually, with the layered cross for Ada, we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, and then up 1, 2, 3. And then we'll lay in 3 to 4, and then we'll work that same stitch order. Okay. So we go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It really is so much easier to see the Ada. I don't fight it as much stitching through the camera. 1, 2, 3. And kind of that using the needle to find the next hole, that really is the whole reason why we use a blunt tip tapestry needle as opposed to a sharp tip needle. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Because if I was trying to kind of use that needle, run the needle on the back as a guide, where to find the next opening or the next hole in the Ada, oh my goodness, you would snag that fabric like crazy if you had a sharp tip needle. Okay, so now we are ready to put in our horizontal stitches. So we're going to come up here at 5 and go down at 6. Kind of making, really, we're kind of making another X, if you think about it. We're just following the roadmap with the order of the stitches. And we're going to complete our horizontal stitches. Now come up at 9, down at 10, up at 11, and down at 12. There you go. Pretty stitch. All right, let's do another one just to make sure we got it. Okay. So we start here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Come up at the lower corner, which is 1, 2, 3 down from where we just went down, and then here's our top left corner. All right, let's make our horizontal stitches. Can you change the order these are done? Sure, these are just the order I liked. Like I said in the last one, you can make your horizontal stitches last, so do your vertical stitches first. With a layered cross though, you want, the whole idea though is that you want to complete, so really think about it, there's 3 cross stitches layered. Okay, we have the first base one over 3, and then we've got this kind of elongated horizontal cross, and then we have the elongated vertical cross. You can change, you want to complete each cross. If you intermix them, then it becomes a different stitch, which is also kind of fun to do. All right, and one final stitch. I'm not counting as much with these because I think it's kind of obvious that you can see some of the openings and the way the stitch is progressing, the different layers of it, and hopefully you're also following along in the chart. So I'm going to end this one here. That is your layered cross. Ta-da! Okay, where did my scissors go? Okay, then let's do an eyelet. Now, opening a hole on an eyelet on Ada is gonna be a little more difficult. It can still be done. It just really kind of depends on your Ada. This is slightly stiffer Ada that I bought. There's some that are super duper stiff. You are not gonna open a hole up in them. Some are, you know, I call them loosey-goosey. Usually it kind of tends to be maybe more the hand-dyed ones. You'll definitely be able to open a hole. The jury's out on this one. So I'm gonna anchor with a knot, with a waist knot. And I'm going to come up here. Hopefully I did not confuse you with what I thought, oh, this will be really cool to demonstrate with the eyelet when I was talking about that on the linen, you know, joining the edges and sharing holes, and I got a little carried away with that. So let's just do it as charted, Kathy. All right, so we're going to come up at 1, and we're going to count to the left, 1, 2. Then we'll come up at 3. I'm going to pull that a little bit just to see if I can start opening that center hole up. And up at 5. Down in the center. Up at 7. Again, down in the center. I'm probably not as concerned about on Ada opening a hole up. I just want the stitches to be nice and crisp. I always think that's just a really good look. This is when I get excited and I go, oh, look, it's a half eyelet. And those are kind of fun stitches too. I just get a little carried away. All right, down for our final long spoke. That's stitch number 13. Down into the middle. And 15. Down into the middle. And again, look at that. Now I did kind of open it up a little bit. It's dark just because that's where all the stitches went down. You always want to go down into that same hole. But look how it's just so very pretty. All right. Now I'm actually going to, okay, so I'm going to try it. I'm going to demonstrate how pretty these could look if I did share holes. So I'm going to try and I'm going to do, it's easier to count if I this is what I was trying to do on the linen, but it was a little more difficult to count. So I came up at 1 and I'm going to go down, count over 2 blocks. I'm going to go down into the middle. And this would be stitch number 3. I know I'm probably not making very much sense, but I get a little geeked out on some of these stitches. I just think they're fun. And now you don't have to count because guess what we're using? Sharing a hole there. And you get to do it again. And one last time. Now, can you do this sewing method? Absolutely. And if you're not sure what sewing method is, let's come up in stitch number 11. You can, it's harder to do on Ada just because it's slightly stiffer, but very easy, much easier to do on linen. You would go down into the hole and then up at stitch number 13. This is definitely makes it easier to pull and open up that hole. So that's like what I call the sewing method. I prefer not to do that on Ada. It's just a little harder. Okay, so we're getting ready to do our final stitch here of this particular eyelet. Now again, it's not charted this way in the chart. I was just being a little geeky with the eyelet stitch and show you how you could actually, just the possibilities. And kind of why stitch order is very important in an eyelet stitch. Because now my thread, as I'm holding it on the back, it will open up that hole. It won't kind of come forward and go like that, because then those two holes don't look alike, and you want them to look alike. So there you go. That is the eyelet stitch. I'm gonna bring my thread up and we'll end there. And one more to go. Phew, okay, the one that was giving some folks some angst, and apparently me a little bit too, as I was demonstrating it. Okay, and I am going to go back to sitting down. I don't know why. Because I think, oh, hold on, I dropped my needle and thread. Let's not do that. All right, here we go. I think just because we've got so much going on with the different stitches, okay, I'm gonna bring my camera down a little bit. I'm gonna turn this. I am going to do a little waist knot. All right, let's go up just a tad so I don't hit the camera so much. I'm anchoring my thread with the waist knot, and then I need to see this part, sorry. Okay, so I anchored with the waist knot. I brought my needle up here, and I'm going to go down. I think this is why it's easier for me to sit when I do this, because then I can lay this actually kind of on the table and use that as use your work surface a lot of times to help you with different stitches and finishes. All right, so we're gonna go back down. It's a little leverage. It's almost like an extra little hand. Okay, and we're gonna pull that. Okay, so it's much easier to see counting on Ada than it was the linen. It just gets a little close in there. That's why I said on the linen, sometimes you can kind of fudge it. If it's a thread off, you're really not gonna see it. So here we go, 1, 2, I'm gonna go 3 just because I really want you to see the chains. So we're gonna pull on that a little bit. And if you feel like, whoops, I pulled it too tight before we anchor it in place, let's open that up a little bit. And I'm gonna move this just slightly so I can see. I'm gonna go back down in the same hole. And you can kind of see I'm actually holding on to the thread a little bit just because I don't want it to get away from me. Okay, whew, that worked out much better this time. It was a little easier on the demonstrating. And we're gonna count down. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Pull this through. So now by doing this, we've actually now anchored the first chain, and to anchor the second, we're going to go down into that same hole. Sorry, I gotta find where my needle is here. It's a little disorienting sometimes when you're trying to stitch this way. We go 1, 2, 3. And I'm through the loop. Whoop, I was. Let's get in there. Let's get in there. Because we want to anchor that. Okay, so I actually wanted it to go the other direction. So we're going to go. Oh, that lays better. See, now that lays a little bit better. And I'm going to take a moment before I kind of move. This one's a little bit bigger. This one could kind of just scoot the chains around with my needle just to kind of make sure that we're looking nice and even here. And let's do one last one. I'm going to go down that same hole. 2, 3. You're probably all sitting at home going, get it. All right. There we go. And I'm going to end this one by going down through the next hole forward, thus going over the chain stitch just to anchor that into place. There we go. All right. Yay. So there we go. We've got our Smyrna cross, our layered cross, our eyelet, and then the nested chain stitch. So very fun to do on Ada. All right. I'm going to shut the camera off here and I'll come back at you. Whew. Okay, survived. All right. I hope you did. I did. Whew. I'm gonna need to go outside for a walk or something like that. But anyway, I want to make sure I'm always trying something new, camera angle, that just to make it easier for you to see the stitches. So sorry for a little bit of the bumps and the just running commentary. The running commentary is not going to go away. That's just me. But anyway, it's all in good fun. So anyway, so I just want to say thank you for going through the 4 specialty stitches for the summer folk design. Hopefully this helps with I know, you know, I've had a lot of people say, oh, these charts are great. And I know that's really helpful, but to somebody who's maybe never done them before, I think maybe actually seeing them done might help a little bit. Now, is this the only way that these stitches can be done? No. Could they potentially be called something else? Absolutely. So if you have a way or a method of doing them and that's what you want to do, definitely you do that. So specialty stitches can get called all different things. I might name it Cathy's version, and somebody might come along and actually change a leg or something like that, and they'll have their own version of it, or they might call it something else. There's a lot of times when I'm researching the different stitches, what I was taught that stitch to be might actually look like something else in somebody's resource book, that type of thing. So there's all different names. It's all good. If you've got a different name, call it that. We're just going to go with this for purposes of the 4 Seasons Folk series. So I hope you're having fun with this series. The HOD, it's the hashtag HOD Summer Folk Stitch Along is ongoing right now, of course, as I post this video, and Chari Moss is leading the stitch along and she's doing an excellent job. And I love seeing everybody's stitches. I love seeing the different colors that you used. I like seeing stitchers say, I've never done specialty stitches before, and this is so much fun. I hope you're enjoying them. So I'm going to put these all together so they're easy for you to watch. And hey, before we know it, Autumn Folk is going to be out, and I'm excited about showing you that one too, and as well as Winter Folk. I think that's all for now. Enjoy the stitch.